Good morning, everybody. Happy Fashion Forward Friday. Welcome to the 2022 edition of Black Fashion Career Day. We've had incredible festivities all week. If you haven't had a chance to purchase the replays, I encourage you to do so. They're $10. After tomorrow, they will increase and they will include the 2021 replays. But there's been some great information that has been coming forth. So without further ado, we're going to start our first session with a conversation about how fashion works. I thought this year that would be an incredible session. So I am welcoming two incredible young ladies to the screen, Mikelle Drew and Shon Simon. Welcome, ladies. Hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
Good morning. I am
Morning.
so excited to have both of you here. I do want to let everybody know Andrea Kinch Reynolds was not able to be with us today, but we do have a special segment for including her. This is what entrepreneurs do. We make it happen. So we recorded her session. We'll be able to insert it in. And so wonderful. So now we're going to start. And I think I have a slide. Gentlemen, I want to thank my tech team, Park Boulevard Productions as well. They're based out of Brooklyn, but not limited to Brooklyn. So we have a slide that kind of gives a picture of it that will come up in a few seconds, but we're going to modify it after today's conversation about fashion. So Mikelle, we're going to tell everybody, introduce yourself, tell them your role. Shon, tell them about yourself. So let's start with Mikelle.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mikelle Drew Pelham. I am a digital fashion designer, and I am previously, in my previous life, I was an activewear designer. I still design here and there, but mostly what I'm doing now is teaching, and I teach a lot of tech, fashion and tech. So I teach with my own company, 383 Design Studio. And then I also am an adjunct professor at the Fashion Institute of Technology and this semester at Jefferson University.
Nice. And Shon, tell everybody about your company.
Hello, my name is Shon Simon, and we are a manufacturer wholesale distributor in California. And our name is changing to Z Factory. We're moving to Texas, Dallas, Texas. And like I said, we are full vertical manufacturer and a wholesale distributor.
Which is amazing. There are not a lot, I'm not aware of any Black manufacturers but you. So this is incredible. And I know we're hearing a little bit of feedback, so I might need to mute, or we might need to mute each other when we're talking or when we're not talking, just to make sure that the audience isn't hearing the feedback and minimize our moving around. And if we have another device that's in the background playing it, we want to make sure we put that on mute too, so the broadcast goes well. So let's start with Mikelle. Let's talk about the role. Shon, you know what? Will you put it on mute let's try that.
Absolutely.
Let's try. Yeah, okay, okay. So Mikelle, let's start with, because what we're going to talk with Mikelle about the role of the designer. The designer, I always like to say, is at the epicenter. The designer is the driver for all of this. And then we're going to talk about the role of the manufacturer. And we're going to talk to Shon about that. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth with Mikelle so we can talk about how Mikelle, as the designer, interacts. So with that said, Mikelle, let's talk about concept to design. Talk about the role of the designer from concept to design.
Well, interestingly enough, I think for most students and for most people on the outside looking in, they believe that the designer is just a creative. And we are a creative vehicle, but we also have to process and understand what our customer actually wants. And so we really need to understand and know our customer well so that we're not just, designing cool stuff. It's not that at all. You really want to make sure that you are being creative, but also creating things that are appropriate for your customer, keeping in mind, okay, would my customer buy this? Would they, would they not? Would they like this? Where are they wearing it? What are they coming to me for? So I've over the last year have had a lot of talks about making sure that you are customer centric. So if you are designing and the end result is that you are going to sell your design to a particular group of people, your customers, then you have to keep them in mind as you are designing. And it can't just be that you're just designing because you want to create something cool or that you want to create what you want, but you always want to make sure that you are keeping them in mind. And at the same time, the person is coming to you because they like what you do. But if you on a whim decide, hey, I want to try something different, just be mindful that your customer has been coming to you for what you've been doing. And when you try that different thing, you either are connecting with a different set of people, or it may or may not connect with your current customer. And so you always just need to be mindful of that. So yes, the designer is very creative, but you also have to be a bit analytical as well and really make sure that what you are bringing into that creativity to put out for commerce is appropriate and will connect with the person that has been coming to you and buying from you.
Now that's the role of, if I'm understanding correctly, the designer who is the entrepreneur driving their own brand. Is there a difference in the designer's role if they're working for a brand?
Not really, because if you're working for a brand, the only difference is that they already have an established customer. So you are still making sure that you are designing things that are appropriate. At the time, like years ago, I was designing for activewear for Target, and mass market is a different beast than if you are going higher fashion, because you have to appeal to a much wider audience. So I said this to one of my students the other day. I would always hear people say, your design needs to be more democratic, whatever that means. Well, what I realized later on was that they meant that this design is too specific and it needed to appeal to a wider audience. And so you are still keeping in mind who you're designing for. And depending on who that customer is, you can be really, really creative and you can take more liberties, or you have to really be more democratic about what you are designing and making sure that it's going to appeal to a wider range of audience. So whether you are independent or whether you're working for an established brand, the whole point of a business is still to make money at the end of the day, right? So if someone is not buying your product, then that's a problem. It's a problem if you are a small brand. It's a problem if you're already established. So at the end of the day, you always are still keeping that customer in mind, whether you have your own customer and you're your own brand, or you're working for somebody else and they already have an established customer base.
Okay. And you touched on something. You mentioned mass market. So when we talk about the different categories, whether it's ready to wear, the fast, the high end, are there any intricate differences behind the scenes in the role of the designer?
Overall, you're still doing the same things. You're still keeping the customer in mind. You're still designing, for garments that are appropriate for your customer, for what they're coming to you for, what you're known for the season, but you have a few more liberties, I would say, if you are designing for higher end. A lot of times your budget is a little bit bigger. So you can look at fabrics that are $4 or $5 a yard versus, if you're designing for maybe like Target, your fabric might have to be $1 or $2 a yard. So you have a little more leeway there, but the essential things that you have to keep in mind as a designer, those are all still the same. It's just bigger budgets, basically.
Right. And I look at the role of the designer as being, when I say epicenter, you really are. You're the driving force. So let's
Yeah.
talk about how you are driving you're the driver for the raw materials, for the manufacturing, for the marketing. Talk
We
about
are, but I want to stress that this is not this, it's still a team effort. Everyone has a role in getting this garment to come to life. You are the person who initiates all of that.
right.
But if you don't have a Shon, or the fabric sourcing people, or the trim sourcing people, or even the trend team, depending on how big your company works for, you may have very compartmentalized roles, and
Right.
everybody comes together to make sure that this garment or this collection is the best that it can be. So you're not working in a silo, and yes, you are the initiator, but you got a team around you that's really helping to make all that happen. And when you are an independent designer and a lot of it is just you, that's when you really start relying more on your team is the manufacturers and the sourcing and the developers and all the other people that you are working with to help you bring all this to fruition. So it's always a team effort. And yes, the designer is initiating it. And a lot of times you are the driver, but all the other teams are coming together to help you make this happen.
And this is good. This is so good. And when you all hear Andrea's message, you're gonna realize how good it is, because you're taking me exactly where I wanted to go. So we have that unity within the industry. Talk about how you rely on the manufacturer as a designer.
Well, I will say we didn't do as much domestic. I don't have as much experience in domestic manufacturing, so I'm really excited to have Shon here, and she can sort of elaborate on that. But I will say that one of the things that we would do is we would have manufacturers who were really great at, especially when we were working with places like Target, where they had very sharp pricing. And so a lot of times we would send something over with a tech pack, and they would look at it and we would discuss with them. And the manufacturer might come back to us and say, this is a really expensive way to accomplish this. We have another way that we can do it to meet your price point. Or they may even say, well, why don't you try doing it this way? This will give you the effect that you want, but it won't be as expensive, or it won't be as complicated, because sometimes we're just dreaming up things, and we're as much as we're trying to think through the construction, we're not necessarily the experts on that part of it. That's the manufacturer. The manufacturer, is doing stuff all day long. So we rely on them a lot of the time to make sure that what we are trying to accomplish, they can help us execute.
Awesome. Perfect segue, Shon. Yes.
Hello.
Good morning. And,
Good
and
morning.
this is the thing. What time is it on the West Coast?
8:13.
You see, when I first talked to Shon, she told me, she said, I'm up at 4 every morning. So
Yeah, it's been hectic moving to Dallas.
this is amazing. An African American woman that is a manufacturer. Can we talk about your story and how you got into this? I think you had, if I understand correctly, you had an experience that drove you into becoming a manufacturer.
Yes, I was a celebrity makeup artist. I have been doing makeup in the advertising and the entertainment industry for about 15 years. And I loved it, but I was getting older and I wanted to create another stream of income for myself. So I started an online boutique, and I saw that that online boutique did very well, but I wanted to, put my own creative input into it. So I wasn't a designer, but I was a creative and I had ideas. And I'm a person that takes risks and regret sometimes later. But I ended up because I could literally live anywhere when I was doing makeup because I would just travel to the job. So my husband and I decided to live in Los Angeles so that we can expand on the fashion side. And what happened, we did very well, and I said I'm going to jump into it. So I ended up investing $50,000 into my own clothing brand, and not understanding how it works. We did about 20 styles. We did the pattern, the sample, and then we went straight into production. I was like, I love it, I love it, I love it. Let's go. And then when I got to production, I saw that the person that I was working with was only interested in the money. They weren't interested in the fit and making sure I was good. And so when we got to production and we tried to have a photo shoot, the crotch was too high, the arm was too tight. It was crazy. I didn't have the knowledge and the know-how, and the understanding of manufacturing. I was too new. I was so excited. I was like, just trying to get into it fast. And so when I got the production, I ended up losing the $50,000 because everything was wrong. We couldn't use it, we couldn't do anything. And I became so sad and so frustrated, but I turned that frustration into obsession. And what I ended up doing was I went to manufacturers and I said, you see this? I totally messed this up. Teach me where I went wrong. And I got so many doors slammed in my face, into where I found this Korean woman, and it was just a connection that I had with her, but she turned me down. She was like, do you have an appointment? You need to go, go, go. And then I ended up coming back to her. I said, please teach me. I messed this up. Teach me, please. And so then she told me no. She told me no about 5 times. I ended up coming back. And when she saw that I was like persistent and I was like, please teach me, she made me sit down and we went through every single design together. And she, over time, she started teaching me where I went wrong and what was wrong with the sewing and all that. And so then she talked to me about, she said, you need to learn about textiles. You don't understand textiles. Why would you make this in this textile? This is a woven. You need to have a knit for this textile. So I said, okay. I went and I searched every textile company in Los Angeles, and I spent 3 months searching, going, introduced myself, looking at the textiles that they had, going around to every place until I became an expert. And even today, I know every single textile place in Los Angeles for anything that anyone needs, to where the pros sometimes come to me and say, oh, Shon, where can I get this textile? And so from that point, I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to make sure that every new designer that wants to design don't have to go through what I've gone through. And the second thing, I said, I'm going to open up my own manufacturer. That was crazy. But I did it. I started in a 200 square foot place. I got some clients. We started out with t-shirts, and we just grew and grew. And it's been like an amazing journey. It's been a lot of uphills, downhills. And as an entrepreneur, I've made some mistakes and I've made some incredible successes. I've had incredible successes and I've had incredible mistakes. And it's been a journey. But a person like me, I get excited about the journey. I never get excited um, about the destination. I never get excited about the mountaintop.
You look, you happy. This is Women's History Month, Women's Month. So happy Women's Month to both of you, but definitely how you turn that around for not just yourself, but us as a people.
Thank you. It's
Thank you.
exciting. It's exciting.
So when we talk about the role of a manufacturer, what is the essential role of a manufacturer and what are the steps involved?
I think the essential role of a manufacturer is to produce what the designer makes. I'm every manufacturer is different. You have manufacturers that are literally just sewing factories. You have cut and sew. You have factories that are vertical that offers pattern making, sample making, all different types of services, even finishings. And so you have to really understand or have a clear understanding on what do you need that manufacturer to make. Usually, a new designer would be best at going to a vertical manufacturer so that they can hand walk them through the process from start to finish. But someone like Mikelle that's doing the design in-house, that's doing all that front leg work, they may just go to a sewing manufacturer.
So there are different types of manufacturers. This is good.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And when we talk about things that a designer should look out for when they're working with a manufacturer, what are some of those things?
I think Mikelle can really talk about the experienced designer because we also do work with experienced designers. But for the new designer, because that's like where my heart and passion is, I want the new designer to understand that it's not the responsibility of the manufacturer to design your garment, because most manufacturers, they don't design. I'm not passionate about designing. I can help lead and navigate you through the process and say, well, think about this, think about that. But the designer must have a clear understanding and a clear vision on what they want to make. Not only clear in their head, but be able to articulate to the manufacturer, whether it be on paper. And the articulation is not just verbal. It has to be on paper. It has to be a sample. It can be a really, really detailed picture. It has to be something to where the manufacturer is going to be able to see it and understand it, because manufacturing is very technical. You can have some creative moments and some creative, energy going back and forth, but it's very technical. And so that language has to be spoken in a very technical way.
Look, I know that's a part of the clip I'm going to be sharing with everybody. Now talk about, your book. I'm getting a book. I'm going to give away a book later. But talk about your book and how they can get the book. And I think you have 2 editions. Is that right?
Well, my second book is coming out, and I postponed it. It was supposed to come out later this year, but I postponed it till December. The summertime. But I wrote a book called The Art of Manufacturing, and it's a step-by-step guide for new designers approaching manufacturing. And it literally is a book for new designers, and it has definitions in there so you can understand. It walks you through the development process, the ideation process, the manufacturing process, picking fabrics. It is really telling you everything that I learned during my failures, because for me, like I'm a risk taker, and it's like my failures can't be in vain. It cannot be in vain. Like my failures, it has to be, I'm very transparent. So it has to be open so that people don't make the same mistakes that I made. And you can prosper from my process. And so it really is there to help people understand and get a real clear understanding about the manufacturing process, because it is a process. It's not something that's overnight.
You are wonderful. You can prosper from my process. That's a tweetable. Thank you, Shon. Thank you for your heart. That's why
Is this the book that's out already, or is this the one that's
It's
coming
the
out?
book that's out already. It's the book that's out already. Everything's changing now, so everybody has to be a little patient with me. But the second book, is done. Like, it's done, and it's just, every time I look at the second book, I start tearing up, because the first book was amazing, but this second book, I believe that the second book is going to be something that universities are going to have as a requirement in their bookstore. I really believe that. That's
So,
how amazing this is.
so Shon, can we talk later about a interview on that book when it comes out so we can make sure?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. For I'm excited.
I am too. I was just thinking that your first book, like the first one that you were talking about, sounds like something that I want to recommend to my students like ASAP.
Yeah, it's an amazing book.
Yeah, so I'll keep an eye out for the second one because you said this is a good one.
I'll give you. It's an ebook. The first one is an ebook, so I'll give you a copy so that you can have for your students for sure.
See how she? Okay, see how she is. This is why I was like, I have to have her. I have to. I keep. She was so that. Let me keep going because of time, but I knew this is why, because her heart is just so big, and she wants to see us. Each of you want to see us succeed. That's why you're here. But there's information that we haven't had access to, and you're giving it to us, and you've taken your situation, and like you said, it is not in vain.
And I'm
Yeah.
still going through situations because you're learning and you're growing and you're climbing mountains. So
Right.
it's exciting.
So Mikelle, real quick, and then I'm gonna play the interview, or Park Boulevard is gonna assist in playing the interview with Andrea. But products, we talked about the design, we talked about the manufacturing. Thank both of you. Now it's time to get ready to get this product to the store. But we need that marketing piece to do that. So talk a little bit about how you rely on the marketing partners, and then we're gonna hear what Andrea and I discussed about the role of the marketing partners.
Marketing is huge. I think that people kind of, especially designers, I don't know that I think we know it, but as far as like if you have a marketing department, for whatever reason, people don't want to put as much money into marketing. And the reality of it is you could have the coolest, greatest product, but if nobody knows about it, then it's nothing, you know? I did an event a few years ago, and I was talking about like, this is a lot of people really work in the field of dreams model, right? And so they're like, you know, that whole thing, if you build it, they will come. That doesn't happen. You know, you have to build it and then you tell people about it and then they come, you know? And so when designers, I think we are always very, very much into, at least on the corporate side, we're very much into the marketing of it. When you're independent, I think sometimes people do sort of think about, okay, I'm going to build this really cool thing. And because it's so cool, people are going to flock to it. And they might, but they still have to know that you actually did it. So that marketing portion is really, really huge. You know, design, I think, is helpful in that they understand how things are supposed to function, how this was intended, and they can help feed the marketing team, if you have a marketing team, to help them get the marketing together to really get it out to the customer. If you don't have a marketing team, then you again think about how your customer is going to be using this, where they're going to be, how they want to interact with your garments, what the story is behind that garment. And if you can bring them into that story, that's a great way for them to connect with it and then feel like, oh, I want it, I want to buy it.
So let's take a listen to the interview that Andrea, Kinch, Reynolds, and I conducted last night as we talk about that marketing piece. So Andrea,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you. I have a surprise for everybody, but I'll tell y'all that later. So thank you for the surprise for everybody, and thank you for joining me. And you know, this is what entrepreneurship is about, for those people thinking things happen, but you make it work. So
Absolutely.
Andrea, thank you for joining me at this, late date so we can put everything, I got her on midnight, y'all. I got her on late at night recording this, so we can make sure that you get the information so you can benefit. So we're going to
Absolutely.
pick up the conversation and talk about the marketing.
Yes.
One of the things that we do at Black Fashion World is no disrespect to any other organization, but we like to look at the fact that marketers, and we'll allude to this, marketers tell the story.
Right.
So whether that's where it's a model,
Yes.
whether it's a photographer, whether
Right.
it's a cosmetologist, a nail tech, a journalist, you are the individuals who are telling the story. So we want to get into the conversation about how a marketer, whatever role they're in, really supports the designer. So when you're talking about the role and the responsibility of marketing partners in the fashion industry, talk about that a little bit.
Definitely. So again, thank you so much for having me here this evening. And I just want to say that when it comes to marketing, marketing is key. As a designer, you can have an excellent brand. You can have excellent clothing. However, the model is important to put that clothing out there for you. So just like in any industry, you can have an excellent product, you can have an excellent service. People need to know about it. So marketing is definitely key, whether you're working with models, whether you're doing just, a simple commercial yourself, whatever it may be, putting it out there so that the world can know about your fabulous brand and purchase it.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Some of the different categories and respect to their roles and how they really tell that story.
Right.
As a model, you have a modeling agency, talk about how that model gets into telling that story, and then, travel through some of those those areas.
Definitely. So one of the things that I always remind my models when they are going, to a go-see, as we would say, to meet with that designer or a casting, is they need to walk in there with confidence. That's number one. That's key, because that designer is going to look at them. They can be, a beautiful woman, a handsome gentleman. However, if they walk in there with confidence, that's going to definitely be a plus. When they are putting on the clothing, walking out, showing it to the designer, making it, their own in a sense, as if it's, their favorite outfit, is really important, because when they're doing a fashion show or a photo shoot, it's going to show if they feel comfortable and confident in the clothing. And when people see them, they're going to look at it and say, wow, I want that dress. I want that blouse. I want those pants, those shoes. Just, having that confidence when they're in the designer's clothing. And I always remind my models too, whether it's, a higher end designer with a high price point or a more affordable designer, you wear it as, it's a high end designer, because you want to make sure that, again, whether you're modeling for a brand, let's say like one that I'm thinking of, Dolce & Gabbana, or you're modeling for Target, you want to carry yourself the best way possible in the clothing, because at the end of the day, it's not about how much the clothing costs. It's about how, you look and you feel it. And I always say, when you look good, you feel good, and you're going to perform better in whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. I have a motto: when you look better, you feel better. And when you feel better, you do better.
It's true. Yes.
Yeah. So let's just hit on some of the other areas.
Yes.
Telling that story and that role. The photographer, which we're gonna be talking later tomorrow. Today is
Awesome.
we'll be talking with fashion photographer Keith the Major, so he'll really get into that. But capturing those pictures, even the nail tech,
Yes.
the makeup artist.
Yes.
Talk about their role in helping to tell that story for the designer.
Definitely. So when, that model comes in, they need to be a blank canvas. And when it comes to, for example, let's start with nails. I always tell my models, make sure that you go in with maybe nude color nails, because that designer wants everyone to focus typically on their clothing. If you look through magazines, most magazines, you're going to see that the model's nails are a nude color, whether that be brown, beige, light pink, whether it's even like French or American manicure. manicure. So that way, when we're looking as consumers, we're focused on the clothing. Also, when it comes to hair as well, that all ties in with the hairstylist and, making sure that we're showing off the design in, the best light. So I'll pick on myself a little bit, with what I have on today, I should probably pull back my hair so you could see the design a little bit, better. So the designer, if I were doing a photo shoot, they may say, let's pull back your hair, so we can really see the blouse that you have on and, the design as far as that goes. And then the photographer, let's talk about the photographer. So first off, in telling my models, I always remind them that it's not a photographer's job to teach a model how to pose. So when you go there, you need to be ready to pose and give that photographer life. There are amazing photographers out there, and they're very nice, and they'll tell models how to pose and move your body this way and that way. However, you're making their job a little bit harder when they have to give you direction on every move. There's nothing wrong with, them telling you bring your, chin down a little bit, turn your head this way. But when photographers have to actually come over and pose the model, that's a problem. It takes up more time. And as we know, time is money. If that designer's paying for a studio, we want the model to be able to come in, pose, get some feedback from, the photographer and the designer, of course, of what they're looking for. And then again, put it out there and be able to market it. And a photographer may take, 100 pictures and one of them will end up in the magazine. So that's another thing, is just being able to pose and move and really be able to give the model, or I should say the photographer, variety as a model.
And that's good, because you hit on the magazine.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that journalist, that magazine role.
Absolutely.
That story.
Yes. So now in our society, I will say that magazines to me are still super duper important. However, I do see a lot of people looking, at magazines in a digital way, but I still like to have, that physical magazine in my hand to flip through, see all of the styles. The magazines at the end of the day set the trend. Most of the time, depending on, our personal style, we go to certain magazines, whether it's Essence, whether it's Vogue, and we're looking at those models in the magazine and seeing what their style is. And when I said Essence, I thought of, it was a fall issue that I was looking at, and it was like, right before we're getting to the holidays. I feel like sometimes in October, they're already putting holiday things out there. So I was looking through Essence, and that was one of the things that I did see. The model had, red nails, and then another model had plum nails. And I was like, okay, in this, it makes sense, because of course that's what the designer was looking for. It was more of like a fall / getting into the holiday look. And then, but typically when you're looking in, let's say, Macy's catalog, and it's basic everyday workwear, you're not going to see red nail polish or plum nail polish. So there's always exceptions to the rule in that. So magazines really put it out there, and they're great at marketing as well too. So yeah, because sometimes they don't put the price in the magazine. So what do? You go to the website and you want to see how much is that trench coat, and it gets you on the website to go and purchase things. So.
You're right. They don't have the price, but I'm looking.
No. If it's a catalog, right? If it's a catalog, like again, Macy's, JCPenney, we're gonna see, the prices there. But with a lot of editorial, you're not going to see the prices. Again, it goes back to that high-end brand, and getting you to go to their website and see that trench coat might be $1,000 or something like that. So I always, another thing, tell my models, I'm like, you can get the look for less. It's not, again, all about the price, so to speak.
And then the accessory portion, those accessories and telling the story. Talk about the importance of that.
Definitely. So when it comes to a lot of, designers, sometimes, again, it just depends. They may want the model to just have on, basic, let's say, stud earrings. But then some designers want, hoop earrings and necklace and a bracelet. Like they want, the whole shebang. So it really just depends on the designer and what they want. Jewelry can definitely add to an outfit. But I know sometimes, especially, newer designers, they just want everyone focused on the dress, so to speak, right? So, it just kind of depends on what the designer is looking for, and they can have a lot of fun with it.
Okay. And then the PR person.
Yes. So public relations is so important. Again, it kind of, takes us a little bit back to, the marketing side, putting out there. But then with PR, what does, the world think of your brand? So do you have representation when it comes to your models? Do I see someone, in your dress that actually looks like me? So it's really important that at least for me, when it comes to certain brands, that I see someone maybe that, looks like me on their website. So I could, feel like, oh, okay, this brand really cares, about representation as well too. So when it comes to PR, just making sure that I know we've heard of brands previously, not doing the best things when it comes to clothing and all of that, and not being, sensitive when it comes to, our culture. But that's really important as well too, because then you can create obviously a PR nightmare. So we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
And the one thing that I hear you consistently saying is what the designer wants.
Yes, listen, without the designer, there's, no model. Yes, you can, I guess, things have changed. So I shouldn't necessarily say that I'm very old school. So I know that, nowadays we have IG models and, models that in a sense create their own brand. But if we're being honestly realistic and, things change in the industry, but having that longevity, it comes from the designer as a model, being able to look at the designer's website, being able to see yourself in that, designer's outfit in a magazine or from the photo shoot if they, send you the images. That's important. At the end of the day, the designer is key. They are, the key person. Without the designer, there's no fashion show. When it comes to makeup artists, hairstylists, stage managers working behind the scenes, they're all there because of the designer. If we really think about it, the designer employs people in this industry, and their role is so important.
Would the designer be able to successfully market their product without each of these partners we just mentioned?
Well, unless they know how to do all of these things themselves, and I don't knock it, because sometimes I try to be superwoman and do everything myself. So unless that designer is a makeup artist, a hairstylist, they have a background in public relations, no, it's a team. It's a team. At the end of the day, sometimes we have what we call, our baby, our business, and we want to do it ourselves. We know that we can do it. We have our vision, and we know that we're going to do it right. It's like our recipe, it's like if grandma, is putting together a pie and she's giving me the recipe, it's still not going to come out as good. She can give it to myself, my mom. It's not going to be like grandma's recipe. So it's the same thing, with a designer. I understand, totally that they have that vision, but it does take a team for sure.
And I thank you for saying that, because this is the conversation about how fashion works.
Yes.
And you said the perfect thing. It takes a team.
It does. Thank you. Thank you.
This has been phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
That's where I really wanted to get to, the fact that it takes a team. There's a African proverb, I believe, that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
Yes.
And that's how fashion works.
Absolutely.
Working together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Andrea, this has been wonderful. Thank you so very much.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today, Carla.
Absolutely.
Have a good one.
So as you see, it's always amazing how this event works and everybody's on one accord. So she referred back to what you said, Mikelle, about it taking a team. And that's what it is. It's a team, and we don't want to forget that. And that's one of the reasons I feel as though oftentimes those individuals who are helping to tell that story get kind of left out. So we identify them as fashion marketers. This is 11:43. This has been phenomenal. In the last few, maybe back up, one of the things I do want to tell you is Andrea couldn't be here, as you know, but she is going to give away a full scholarship for modeling for her organization. So I will be sharing, we've got to wrap up those details, but I'll be sharing those details with you next week on how you can apply. We didn't get a chance to talk about that. Let's sell the product. So what I do want to tell you is last night at 5 p.m., Waquasia King Thomas and I had the opportunity to talk about that role, that fashion merchandising and the distribution role. And I encourage you, if you didn't get the replay, get the replay, $10, less than the price of a book. And you can replay it as much as you want, the whole series, the whole week, and be empowered. So with that said, Mikelle, Shon, this has been incredible. What food for thought in the last few minutes that we have do you want to share with everyone? And later on today, like I mentioned the book for Shon, so later on today, I'll do the giveaway on the book for Shon, and I'll get with Shon. I got to get two. I got one for me and one for somebody. So Mikelle, do you have any closing?
For me.
Yeah, well, she said, look, she set you up.
Oh, that's right. That's right. She sent me one. Okay, so never mind.
See how that works when you work with Black Fashion World Foundation? You get to connect with the people you need to connect with. You get to empower people. And when you come to these events, you get empowered. What better can you ask? Mikelle, when we talk about how fashion works, what are some final thoughts that you have that you want to share with people that they need to know?
Well, I think what we have touched on, all of us have touched on a little bit, and I'm really glad that it came out, was that it does take a team of people. And so I think that a lot of times, even on Project Runway, which is like a favorite for a lot of us, a lot of people really are like, oh, we have to do a group project. But I encourage everyone, the students, and the non-students who are trying to get into fashion, who are on this event and listening to this, I encourage you to really think differently about that and to embrace having a team. And it's not just about just getting whoever, right? You obviously, you want people on your team who are going to work with you, who are not just going to be yes men, who are also going to challenge you, and not challenge you to the point where it's going to drive you crazy, but also challenge what you're thinking and whether what you're doing is just the easy way. But to your point, Carla, if you really are saying, I want to make this brand work, or I want to make a career and a long-term career out of being a designer, part of that is the relationships. A big part of that is the relationships, and learning that there are, you, yes, are the initiator of the creative idea, but you need all of these people to help you execute and make it come to life.
Wonderful. Shon, in the last few minutes, final thoughts on how fashion works.
I would say I would encourage everyone to be your authentic self as a designer and who you are as a person, and value the moments that you are put in the fire, because those are the opportunities to where you can build character, you can build tenacity, you can build stamina, you can build discipline, you can build all these different things that you need to work on yourself. And once you are your authentic self and you are also taking advantage of those opportunities that you're in the fire, what happens is you become a better you become better aware, you become better discerning, you become a better entrepreneur, you become better at what you want in your brand, in your life. You become healthier, you become wiser, you become wealthier, not just in money, but rich in knowledge. So that would be my advice to any designer, whether you're young or old, because oftentimes we could start working and get so caught up in life, and we forget about the inside of who we are and what we're really called to be and called to do. So that would be my ending advice. I'm living and breathing that, and I'm so excited to be here and to be a part of this and to share my story and to share the information. So thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Happy Women's Month.
Can I say one more thing,
Yep, 2 minutes.
please? I'll be quick. So I would, of course, be remiss because I am a teacher. I would be remiss if I did not say to continue to always learn. And as Shon said, learn about yourself, learn about the things that you love, always be working on yourself, and then always be learning something new and learning something new about your craft, whether that's getting Shon's book, or going
Right.
on YouTube or going back to school, getting a course, whatever that is, just keep learning.
Awesome. We are signing off. I will see everyone back at 12 with Renee Gonzalez as we're going to talk about the buying process. Thank you, Mikelle and Shon, so very much.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Thank you for
All
having
right.
me.